Number one, what are the rules of engagement in your relationship? What does commitment look like? What do you promise to each other? There's a big difference between trying to help your partner be the best version of themselves
that they've communicated to you they aspire to be,
and or just in congruence with their essence.
Yeah.
Versus I want to change you to be more like me.
We take that on as a code of commitment to really be mindful of that and try to prevent any hurting of one's heart, because you can never really fully take that back, and we call it heartstrings. Once you clip a string of the heart, that's essentially trust. And if you're not protecting your partner's heart, then you're clipping multiple strings of trust that are so fundamental to the relationship.
Conscious couples, business partners, and individuals, welcome to the Conscious Couples podcast, where we share our life, love story, and relationship expertise to help you consistently cultivate the most magnificent relationship possible.
Never again will you feel hopeless and alone in your intimate relationship challenges. We'll help you have the courage to be your authentic self, communicate effectively, and constructively resolve conflict.
Having accumulated thousands of hours coaching, speaking, podcasting, and hosting live events with conscious couples all over the world, Alan and I are here to guide you in all things relationships.
Thank you again for tuning into the one place where it's not about you or me, it's about the we. Conscious couples and individuals, welcome back to the one and only Conscious Couples podcast. Today we have episode 176, How Committed is Your Partner? This is going to be an event recap. Before we jump into this episode, I want to give a huge shout out and thank you to Next Level Podcast Solutions. The last time I tracked my metrics, we are now producing and or coaching / consulting with 108 podcasters and business owners. So we're growing. If you want to start, grow, scale, or monetize a podcast, we've been doing this for 8 years. We've made a lot of mistakes. You do not have to start from square one. Please reach out. Before we jump into this episode, my love, what is your intention? Ladies first.
My intention for our listeners in this podcast episode is to start to touch base with how connected and how committed their relationship really is and their partners are to the relationship, so that by the end of this episode, they can, if they haven't already had their focus in on commitment, they can at least start to focus in on it more, because where your focus goes, your energy flows.
So I opened the event with what I call the doom loop and the success loop. The doom loop is you don't believe in the relationship anymore, so then you invest less time, effort, and money into it, which then makes it worse, which then makes you believe in it even less, which makes you invest even less and believe in it. And it's the doom loop. And all of a sudden, rock bottom. The success loop is the exact opposite, which is I believe in Emilia and I at level 10. So I invest level 10 time, effort, and money into it, which then makes it grow, which then makes me believe in it even more. And so if you imagine when you first meet someone, first it's, I believe in this at level 1, so I invest at level 1, then I get to level 2, then I invest at level 2, I get to level 3, and then the commitment grows. And what happens a lot of times in relationships is we take each other for granted and our commitment level drops, even though in the beginning, in the honeymoon phase, you were level 10 committed, you were dating each other. And at the event, the biggest takeaway for me was realizing you had asked the question at the event of what does commitment actually look like from your partner? How do you know your partner is committed? And I realized, looking back at one of my relationships, if I had asked that question, I would have realized that she was not committed almost at all. And that I was basically investing a ton of time, effort, and money into a relationship with someone who isn't actually committed to being with me or to being the best version of themselves.
Yeah. So for anyone that's joining this episode, one of the golden nuggets that I think is important for this conversation is really starting where we focus also on this event is, what does commitment mean to you? What is it like? What is your actual definition of committed? have that in mind or take a moment just to write that down, even if it's just like a bullet point, right? And so we had a shared meaning when it came to the event. And in a nutshell, commitment was the willingness and the dedication, the devotion to show up and rise to the occasion of connection, even and especially when tough times get going, because that was what we had said. Like, honestly, the only guarantee is that you're going to have challenges, you're going to have conflict, there's going to be change, and it's how you respond to that, especially in the tough times. Like, that is what quote unquote shows your level of commitment. And so for anyone that's joining this episode, having your own definition is critical. Part 2 of that is also sharing your definition with your partner, because if you and I have different versions or different definitions of commitment, for example, commitment to me just looks like a ring, which it doesn't, by the way. But for example, if that was quote unquote commitment, and let's say, for example, I don't have a ring on my finger or whatever, right? Like I could make a story or a narrative that means you're not committed to us. But that might not be the case at all, given your level or your definition of commitment. And so as a conscious couple, it is not only focusing your time, energy, and attention into defining what does commitment mean to you, what does it look like, what does it sound like, what does it feel like in your relationship, but also recognizing that both of you are going to have totally different definitions. And that's based likely upon what we got into, which I thought was really interesting in the chat too. The community seemed to really resonate with this, is like, how has that commitment just been externalized? So for example, on Valentine's Day, we can all remember that, we probably had specific notes that we would give to our crushes. Or when you got into your middle school relationship or your high school relationship, commitment maybe looked like driving to school together, or maybe a promise ring, or maybe sitting at each other's lunch table. When you got into adulthood, commitment looked like moving in together, or getting a dog together, something like that. There's an external representation of the definition kind of combining. But what happens when what we're proposing, commitment isn't just in those externalities, but it's far more about on the day-to-day, on the week-to-week, on the month-to-month. What does it look like? What does it feel like? And how do you define it?
The Conscious Couples podcast is based on this idea of taking things that are unconscious, autopilot, and making them conscious, and then bringing them to your partner so that you make sure you flourish and grow together, not apart. One of the things that was very, very clear is people did not necessarily sit down and have a conscientious conversation with their partner about what their code of commitment actually is. And Emilia created a slide. We have it up behind over here in the studio. Code of commitment. And this is something that at the event, I brought this metaphor up that I like. If you haven't seen the very first Pirates of the Caribbean movie, it's awesome.
It's amazing.
I went to theaters and saw it like 5 times, genuinely. I was obsessed with that movie. And I loved riding my bike to the theater, and there was no other good movies at that time. Mm-hmm. But it's called The Curse of the Black Pearl. And there is a character in that film, if you haven't seen it, called Captain Barbossa. And he says they have this thing called the Pirate's Code. And Barbossa basically says to Keira Knightley's character, and I quote, "They're more like guidelines than actual rules. Plus, you're not a pirate. So the Pirate's Code doesn't apply." But anyways, so one of the things that I playfully said in the event that I think is super relevant is, number one, what are the rules of engagement in your relationship? What does commitment look like? What do you promise to each other? You mentioned in the event that you had an ex who got you a promise ring. Mm-hmm. And we talked on a walk earlier about how people give their vows. When Emilia and I first met each other, we did these really long check-ins every weekend on FaceTime and or in person. And we got very clear out of the gate of what it means to be committed to one another. And we didn't call it the code of commitment. Mm-hmm. We just uncovered it over time. And in hindsight, it's very clear that we did this right. We set ourselves up with what are our guidelines? What is okay and not okay? What are our boundaries? And we had these conversations. So it's up behind us. And again, we're going to be talking about our relationship, but we want you sitting down with your partner. When you go to school, there's certain rules. You have to be in class on time when the bell rings. In your relationship, what are the rules? What is acceptable and not? When do you use devices and not? When do you work or not? Who's in charge of what, right? So this is our sort of code of commitment, for lack of better phrasing. Most people would see these as vows, but this is at the beginning of the relationship, long before all the moving in together, the engagement, the wedding, the children, that kind of thing. Get clear about this up front, and if you haven't, make sure you do it now. So code of commitment, number 1 is truth above all else. We talked in the beginning, and I said I'm never going to lie to you, ever, about anything. And I tell this playful story about how I was swimming in the lake and I went to and from the dock there and back 5 times. And I realized in real time that it was actually 4, and I embellished. And this was little Alan trying to impress the hot girl. And I was like, sweetheart, I'm so sorry. It's actually only 4. I don't know why I just said 5. It was stupid. So that's the level of commitment, of honesty that we have in our relationship. Number 2 is apologies over ego, which is essentially, we don't care. We call this the truth ball. So in a raffle, imagine a shaker with all these balls in it, and you put your ball in, she puts her ball in, and they each have numbers. We don't care if my ball comes out or hers. We care about the truth ball. And that essentially is, listen, put your ego down. We care about what's accurate. And one time, this is a playful example, but we had a disagreement regarding who was taking Tucker out more, and not in a negative way, but just to figure out household duties. And I thought that I was more accurate. And then we looked back at the data and we found out that Emilia was more accurate. And so it was like, okay, 100% my bad. I'm going to take Tucker out more. I would love for you to share the other ones and your take on them.
Yeah, well, the third one is protecting each other's hearts. And so whenever there's a moment that we might have done maybe a prickly pear, or said something that we didn't mean, or acted out of dysregulation, we are extremely mindful of how that's impacted each other. And so picture this pristine, sweet little heart that's within Alan or myself. Our goal is to make sure that anything that might come close to hurting that heart of yours, we're protecting that. And so it's in the words that we say, it's the word choice, it's how we say it to one another, it's the actions that we do and don't do. It's even being mindful of the people and how people might be treating us, if that's going to ultimately impact each other's hearts. We take that on as a code of commitment to really be mindful of that and try to prevent any hurting of one's heart, because you can never really fully take that back. And we call it heartstrings. Once you clip a string of the heart, that's essentially trust. And if you're not protecting your partner's heart, then you're clipping multiple strings of trust that are so fundamental to the relationship.
Hi, I'm Derek, and I just wanted to talk about relationship talks with Alan and Emilia. If you're looking to get some help on working with your relationships, you should definitely give them a shot. They can help you identify certain patterns on things that maybe you didn't realize that you've done or that have happened. And if you want to be able to just start really kind of narrowing down the things that you can work on now that'll help you be more efficient for future relationships, or even the one that you're in, they're definitely the ones to go see, as clearly they lead an example of what a great relationship should look like. And just in general, they're both incredibly intelligent and smart, with just being able to pick out the things that maybe either you missed or that you knew but didn't really quite click yet. So you should definitely give them a shot, because they're very, very helpful and efficient at what they do.
And so commitment is really built upon trust. And so what you and I try to do is to make sure number 2, which if we ever come close to not protecting each other's heart, immediately and profusely apologizing in a way that is honoring the heartstring that was cut. And always, always do we tie it back together with an even stronger one.
To give a tangible example, I remember very early on, this is, I want to say, 2 weeks or 3 weeks after we met. And it was the first time I had met your brother. And he was driving us to Thanksgiving. And your brother had kind of poked fun at you. And I joined him in poking fun at you. And I saw your face. And I went, oh no. I saw what just happened there. I'm never doing that again. And then behind the scenes, I apologized to Emilia, and I retied the string, and I said, I recognize what just happened. I was on his team and not yours. And I'm sure you've dealt with that a lot in the past.
Yeah.
And he is hilarious, so that didn't help. And I realized that hurt your heart a little bit, and I'm never going to do that again.
Yeah.
And I've never done that since. And I've been around Zach a lot.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, brother-sister stuff is fine. I'm not joining him. I'm on your team.
Yeah.
And that's the way it needs to be. And so that's a good example of protect the heart.
Yeah, for sure. And then number 4 is, I believe it's honoring each other's autonomy. So you're an autonomous individual, as am I. And I need to recognize that you and I are not the same. And any time that I am trying to change you into being more like me is at the expense of your autonomy. And so a practical example of this is spicy food. So I love spicy food. Alan doesn't. He tries to tell himself a story every now and then, and me protecting his autonomy literally sounds like, I'll try the buffalo chicken panini or whatever. It's like, babe, hold on a second. You've told me in the past to honor the fact that you don't like spicy food. You regret it every single time. And so I just want to check in. Are you really sure you want this buffalo chicken sauce? Or because I love buffalo chicken.
Or even worse would be a girlfriend who's so selfish in the past who wanted to cook spicy meals, and they would try to convince me to like spicy food.
Oh, yeah, that's trying to try your partner. That's so messed up.
Well, so real talk, we have to have this conversation quickly. And I know we got to jump here in a second. There's a big difference between trying to help your partner be the best version of themselves.
That they've communicated to you they aspire to be.
And or just in congruence with their essence.
Yeah.
Versus I want to change you to be more like me.
Yeah.
So that in the past, it wouldn't just be, oh, hey, give this food a try. It would be actually trying to get me to like spicy food so that they could eat spicy food more. So their life would get easier.
Right.
And again, I know that a lot of people deal with that. You don't want to change your partner, but you do want to help them improve.
Right.
It's that weird duality that we should do another episode on at some point is how do you know the difference between changing your partner and actually helping them reach their potential? Because there are times where I'm like, babe, come on, we got this, you got this, and you do the same for me, but it's in alignment with what I want and who I want to be.
Yeah. And that because of our communication, we have communicated in a large regard. So again, all of this, the code of commitment, these are conversations that Alan and I have had on walks, on podcasts, on like so many little nuances that from out of these conversations, these codes of commitment have really come into the throngs, the micro commitment, for lack of better words, on our day to day. So how we act and don't act. So the 5th one is never go to bed not connected and not in love. There was this one time where I don't even remember what it was, but it was super, super late. And I was actually the one that was not budging. You ever have that time with your partner where you're just like, it's not necessarily about being right, but because of the autonomy component, you feel like there's maybe a partner trying to change your way of thinking, or you're encroaching upon a boundary or whatnot. That's not what Alan was trying to do, but that's what my parts really felt like it was. And so I was holding strong, and unfortunately that did disconnect us, and we were about to go to bed, and I was like, like I was like not having it, which is so not typical for me.
The rollover.
Yeah.
And go to bed.
I love you, but
And everything in me, male ego, was, well, if she doesn't want to make
it work.
Well, if she doesn't want to be connected and in love, then why should I?
Right.
And that's the dumbest shit ever.
So dumb.
So I joke and I say I waved the white flag. We talked about this in the event,
goodness.
and I totally did. It was like, listen, I don't even care. I just want to go to bed in love.
Yeah.
Like, I'm gonna regret this tomorrow. So are you.
Yeah.
I knew you would too.
Yeah.
You would have woken up in shame or guilt.
And I would have,
and it would have sucked. And then of course you would have. But then that would have broken strings.
For sure.
That's not what we do. So again, real quick, truth above all else, apologies over the ego, protect each other's hearts, honor each other's autonomy, never go to bed not in love / connected. And whatever you do, do not force me to eat spicy food. No, we're going to put this code of commitment into the show notes, and it's going to be a free downloadable asset. At very least, sit down with your partner. You can use ours as a reference and then create your own. And if 5 is too many, just pick 3, start small. And now you'll have actual guidelines to start going off of, and then you can have meaningful conversations. Because at the end of the day, if you have 2 people who have no idea where the boundaries are and where the limits are, and you don't agree on these things in advance, it's going to be very hard for you 2 to feel committed, even if you really are deep down.
Facts.
Awesome.
And on that note, kind of to what we said at the very beginning, you might be looking at some version of commitment and creating a whole narrative around that. So if Alan's working quote unquote late one night and I see that and tell myself a narrative that he doesn't care about our relationship, that's not fully true. He's actually so committed to our relationship and making it better that he's going to work so that we can make sure we pay our bills and continue to flourish. And so
build our future.
Build our future.
I'm not doing it just to pay the bills.
No, for sure not. That was not an accurate way to say it. But yeah, so share each other's definition. Make sure you define what commitment means to you and share that with your partner so that you two can exchange and determine how committed you are to your relationship. So
and if you do create a code of commitment with your partner, if you want to share it with us, please reach out. We would love to see it. Again, I think that it's really cool to share these things because there's ideas that you might have that we didn't. Okay, sweetheart, I do got to
or vice versa. Okay, so in the show notes will be the link to register to our next Relationship Talks event, which is how to create emotional safety in your relationship. More often than not, partners do not have any sort of ability to express themselves on an emotional level, and they just are totally shells of themselves in relationship. Do not let that be you. It's going to be the third Thursday of July, which I believe is July 17th, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Join us. Click the link to register.
If you are head over heels in love, and I asked, what would you do for your partner? And you, in your head, said anything. I would do anything. Well, Relationship Talks coaching will guarantee that you grow together, not apart, unless you probably should be apart because you're heading in different directions or whatever it is. So please reach out. The first one is free. Click the link in the show notes. 30 minutes free Relationship Talks coaching session. Emilia and I have coached individuals and couples. Between the two of us, we have over 40 clients now. Yeah. So we are doing this work day in and day out. Okay, so we can help you in a way that I could not possibly describe on a podcast. All right, and it's going to be completely private and anonymous. Please click that link. As always, it's not about you or me. It's about the we. We'll talk to you next time.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks for joining us for another episode of the Conscious Couples podcast. We love connecting with the Conscious Couples community, so please check the show notes to connect with us and say hello on social media.
If you and your partner resonated with this episode, please leave us a 5-star review at the link in the show notes and share this with someone you love. Until next time, it's not about you or me. It's about the we. We'll talk to you next time.